Hello, Lizzie here. I've got some painting to do, so I'm going to show you how I do it. I'm going to be painting onto linen twill, so I've chosen a darker and brighter hue, similar to the fabric. Yellow ochre straight from the tube works really well, but you could use a little white to lighten it. I start with a bit of paint in a palette or an old ramekin jar. Using an old brush, I pick up some water and begin to mix that into the paint. I want to mix it thoroughly so I don't have any watery or thick patches. I can keep adding water bit by bit until it reaches the consistency I want. I'm aiming for it to be thin enough to flow from the brush a little, but not so thin that it will bleed into the fabric. That looks a bit like this, just a bit thicker than double cream, for which apparently the nearest US equivalent is heavy cream. I like to test the consistency on the corner of my fabric before I start. If it flows from the brush without bleeding, I'm happy. I also clean all my brushes at this point. I'm using a tiny brush for the painting. I replace these brushes far more frequently than the larger sizes, because one hair out of place can cause a real issue. This is a 000 brush, so it holds very little paint and is capable of making a very thin line. You'll notice that I'm holding the brush quite close to upright, almost 90 degrees to the fabric. I've loaded the brush with the tiniest bit of paint by gently dipping the tip into the paint. I bring the brush down to touch the fabric and move my hand so that the tip of the brush remains in contact with the fabric, but without dragging it. This is completely different to how you would typically use a brush in painting, where you would apply much more pressure and drag or even roll the brush on the surface. Here I'm barely touching it to the fabric, so it makes the thinnest possible line. That's the key actually. I'm aiming for a clear, thin line. If the line is thick, I might struggle to cover it with the stitches, and if it is broken and unclear, I might struggle to follow it. I'm keeping my hand hovering above the fabric as much as possible. Because you have pounce powder to consider as well as paint, it is a good idea to think how you will work around a large design. I'm right-handed, and I usually start in the bottom right-hand corner. I will then either turn the frame or have a few minutes rest before moving on, so that the paint is dry before I risk rubbing my hand on it. Between every stroke, I'm cleaning my brush on a damp cloth. I pull it along the surface so that the hairs are kept together, but all the pounce powder is removed so it doesn't clump. Every now and again, I fully clean the brush by dipping it in water, and use the cloth to remove the excess water so I don't dilute the paint. In some places, the curve of the line allows me to make quite a long stretch in one go, because it feels comfortable. In others, I'll make a series of very short lines. If you're just starting out with painting, I recommend you make shorter strokes until you feel more comfortable. The longer the stroke, the more likely you are to wobble partway along. Painting can take quite a while, especially if you're new to it. Be mindful that the paint will start to dry as you work, so you might need to water it down again. Acrylic paint will dry soonest, and the dry paint will no longer take water, whereas watercolour can be watered down even from fully dry. From here, I just keep on painting quietly. I really like to take my time, so I can paint as accurately as possible. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this helpful.